A couple of new folks here. My name is Nityananda Pran Das, and as part of VVS, Vedic Vision Society, this is our 15th year being on campus, and I guess helping students graduate with a degree and hopefully a larger and cleaner heart. The faculty at IIT has the responsibility of teaching, I guess all of you, I'm assuming all of you are students, skills, and I guess I've taken the charge of sharing things that I'm learning and I've learned in such a way that we become human beings and we become persons of character and integrity that we can help ourselves and others. And part of that learning process is to have an appreciation for some of the wonderful Vedic teachings. Of course, our primarily the source is the Bhagavad Gita, but we talk about other works as well. And right now we're going through a series called Gita Values. So there are certain persons who have studied the Bhagavad Gita for a very long time, and they came up with 6 values. There are more, but 6 values that they feel are there again and again and again in the Bhagavad Gita, just interspersed. And these 6 values are very important in becoming a person of character and integrity and value and contributing to the world. So there are 6. We've covered 2 so far. First is called the quality of samadarshana. That's a Sanskrit word to mean a person having equal vision. Equal vision is to go beyond the differences of skin color, origin, race, gender, sexual orientation and preferences, go beyond all of that, even beyond the human species, and to be able to see a sense of oneness and difference. Both are there simultaneously. The oneness is that we are all Atma, or living beings, while there is diversity. It's important to have unity and diversity together. And when we are all Atma, that means just as we have the right to live, other living beings also have equal right to live. So it defines our worldview. When we see someone or someone that annoys us, or we turn to hate someone, to go beyond the hate is important to see the oneness. Because when we think of someone as belonging to us, the hatred is not there or not as intense. It's easy to forgive when someone is of our own, etc., etc. So that is samadarshana. What was the second one, Vaishali? Non-violence. Second was called ahimsa. Of course, non-violence exists at the physical level, not killing. But even more subtle than not killing is not harming. And even more subtle than not harming is violence that is done to the mind, emotionally or verbally. What we saw from the Bhagavad Gita is actual non-violence is to help someone progress or get started on their spiritual path. If one doesn't do it, if one does not contribute, if any of us does not contribute to someone else's spiritual starting or developing, then it is some violence in some shape or form. So Bhagavad Gita's definition is very, very precise in one sense. So if you're not doing anything to anybody, still that is considered violence if we are not contributing to someone's spiritual growth and advancement. That's non-violence. Today we're going to look at another topic. I'm going to skip this because we did this the first 2 times. We went through, this is just a sort of a review, or maybe I should do it. There is knowledge, then there is wisdom and information. So information is data, okay, that doesn't have any meaning per se, it's just information. More than information is, or better than information is knowledge. Knowledge means to know what to do with that information. And wisdom is not only to know, but the experience associated with it. That's why wisdom has more value than information. For example, any of us who've graduated, you sit in an interview, this is just, there's nothing to do with this, but you can very nicely say prepared answers to questions, but without practical knowledge of that, it is just information, right? But if you have practical knowledge, it's considered, hey, this is even better than what to speak of experience. That is wisdom. That's where we want to go in life. We want to have wisdom. And then this idea of liminal space is to go from where we are to where we want to get to. That demarcation in carpentry, apparently it's called limen. It's the thing that separates one room from another. And the liminal space that we have to cross through is that the demands of or call to action of Bhagavad Gita in terms of character may be here, and we may be somewhere here. So what we tell others and how we live our own life has a gap generally. For example, let's say someone is struggling with some loss. It's easier to advise the person, oh, don't take it so seriously. And if a similar loss is something we face, then it is easier said than done. So what we say and how we live, usually there is a gap. That's very rare, and a person is considered perfected if that gap is not there. And we're going to talk about such persons as well. But most people, most of us, there is a gap. And the idea of progressing in spiritual life or progressing in life means we're trying to reduce the gap between how we live and what we say. Right? In Sanskrit, the word is called prachar, and how we live is called achar. Achara means to live by one, so walking the talk, as we've heard it to say. Okay, so the idea is to reduce the liminal space, and it is, and that is not possible unless there is what we call divine intervention, and that divine intervention is the Krishna's speaking of the Bhagavad Gita, and his, what we call his help in moving forward. Otherwise it's not possible, as much as many people have tried in this world. So we're going to do a third value today, and the third value is in Sanskrit called amanitva, in English humility. Literally amanitva means absence of pride or arrogance, which is humility. Now when we hear the word humility, what comes to mind for you guys? Throw some words at me. When you hear the word humility, what are some characteristics, or what comes to mind when you hear the word humility?
Not taking your accomplishments very seriously.
Not taking
your
accomplishments very seriously. Okay? Something else?
Non-materialistic. Not being very prideful even in your victory.
not being prideful even in victory. Very good. And you said? Non-materialistic. Say more.
Simple.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Leading a non-materialistic.
Non-materialistic. Simple. Very good. What else? That side of the room is heavily participating. This side of the room is weak.
Maintaining a maintaining a constant mindset even in victory and loss.
That's humility? Maintaining a constant mindset in victory or loss.
By constant, I mean that you don't become too arrogant when you are when you have victory. At the same time, you don't be like, oh, I am the most useless person in the world.
So I don't have like a low self-image because humble means I'm so useless. Actually, I can't do anything. Like that.
Something.
Learning from your failures.
Learning from your failure. Excellent. Thank you. Learn. If this guy's. You want to change sides? You're welcome. Learning from your failures. Anything else?
Like always there will be highest things to see to get to know the things. It's not like okay, now I am done with it.
This sense of I don't know or I want to know.
Always.
Very good. No one thinks, oh, I know everything that exists, or even in this particular subject, I'm the boss. There's nothing for me to learn. Right? When you stop learning, it's the absence of humility. Okay, very good. Let's see what it says. Can someone read this for me, loud and clear?
Humility means the state of being humble. The word humility has its origin in the Latin word humilis, meaning low. Merriam-Webster dictionary.
It's a famous dictionary that like previously we would refer to the Oxford dictionary. So like that there is the Merriam-Webster. So the moment you hear the word low, why is humility, I guess, synonymous with, or the word humilis has something to do with low? It's a high quality, isn't it? Then why low?
Maybe to maintain a low profile.
Low profile. Humble people maintain a low profile? Maybe. What do you think?
Yes. Low profile as in they belittle themselves most of the time.
Belittle themselves. Yeah, that's generally how we see humble or humility to mean. No, I'm not me. Right? Undersell or something to do with low.
Having a play it as low as possible so that you can fill in more.
Yeah, it's a good one. Good one. Let's see. I'm going to show you something. In one of the Vaishnava teachings, a humble person is generally compared to a straw on the street. You know what the straw is, right? Dry grass. Green blade of grass is called grass, and when it dries up, it's called straw. There's a difference between grass and straw. When you step on grass, what happens? It gets stepped on. Yes. But when you step away, it comes back. But a dry blade of grass, which is straw, you step on it, it remains like that. So this low is not about low self-esteem, it is low in pride. So the Vaishnava teaching compares the quality of humility to absence of or progressively decreasing in pride. That is why it's compared to low, humilis. Right? So the teaching says, this Sikshashtaka is that Vaishnava work. The specific Sanskrit says Trunad api su nichena. Nicha means very low. Su nicha means very low, right? Trunad api, more than a straw or a blade of grass, more than a straw on the street. Because let's look at the flip side. The presence of pride, one of the qualities of pride is that it brings about violence in a person. It brings about cruelty. It evokes cruelty in the heart. That is the nature of pride. So even at the cost of, or even if someone says something, right, when there is pride, then a person has the tendency to react back, to revolt back, right? Like there are great teachers who have said you may get, generally the tendency is an eye for an eye, all right? But the idea of, if you slap me on this face, on this cheek, I will show you the other cheek. Now, you raised your hand, I'm going to come to you. Didn't you raise your hand? No, the one behind you. Oh, I thought you wanted to say something. Generally, when we say, oh, even if you slap me in one side, I'm going to offer you other cheek, that's a sign of weakness. That is generally a sign of weakness. And that is true. Weak people are like that. But there are strong people also who are like that. And it's only in the time of testing, when someone is in difficulty, that we say that men separate from the boys. You heard the phrase? You heard an English phrase where men separate from the boys? It means that when someone is put into difficulty, that is when their true character is displayed. Until then, everyone looks the same. So for example, I usually joke that all airlines, perhaps with the exception of Air India, all airlines pretty much are the same, right? It is only in the point of crisis that you can tell which airline is actually good and which is not. Okay, and the crisis is, let's say you lost your baggage and you go and complain to them. How they deal with you and the complaint will be one airline versus someone else. Otherwise, it flies, they give you some food, and pretty much what it is. In any organization, a good organization that knows how to deal with its customers will separate itself as a world-class organization in the time of crisis, not otherwise. Otherwise, everyone offers decent amount of service, right? If you consider yourself a decent organization, you take care of your customers. It's only in the point of crisis that the best ones separate off. Okay? So, amanitva is to learn, to know when to step back or step out of a conflagration in case such thing happens. That is why there is law. So here are some other cultures, how they look, and how other I guess Eastern or other teachings say. So like take a Chinese proverb, it says, be like the bamboo. The higher you grow, the deeper you bow. One of the qualities of humility is that humility is compared to a tree that is full of ripe fruits. Okay? So when a tree is full of ripe fruits, all its branches bend low. Right? Versus a tree that has no fruit, meaning nothing to give, then it stands erect and high up. Okay? Another reason for low is the more you are grounded. Okay? One who is proud and arrogant, they say that the head is in the clouds, but the feet are not on the ground. And in life, we always want to make sure that even if our head is in the clouds, the feet should always be planted on the ground. Important lesson actually. Okay, Chinese proverb, next one. Confucius, he said, humility is the solid foundation of all virtues. Without humility, all other virtues, so-called patience, tolerance, kindness, compassion, talking gently, etc., etc., is nothing but a show. in some of our Vaishnava works, humility is compared to the eyelid that protects the eye. If someone throws something at you, do you have to think that I should close my eyes? No, it's a reflex. The eyelids naturally protect the eye, right? Similarly, humility is such that whatever condition is thrown at you by life, humility is the natural reflex response that protects the eye. The natural, what is humility protecting? So the eyelid protects the eye. What is humility protecting? Huh? The I. Our identification, I, our ego. There are two egos. One is called false ego, which in Sanskrit is called ahankara. Right? You know why it's called ahankara? Anyone? Aham means?
Self.
I, yeah, self. And kara, I am the cause. That whatever happens, it's happened because of me. Somehow I have the power in this world that I can make things happen. Can we make anything happen?
Little.
Yeah. But without help, no. That's right. So ahankara means to think that I am the only one who can make things happen, without acknowledging that there are so many other factors that need to be there in place so that I can do what I need to do. I'm not the only doer. So that is called ahankara. That is called false ego. Then there must be a true ego. Right? The true ego is actually that I am a Atma, I am a living being that is part and parcel of the divine. This is true ego. Then one doesn't think that I am the only doer. Then one thinks I am just an instrument in what is happening. Correct? You see the difference? Being an instrument is a very, very important character. In fact, all of Catholicism, perhaps even Christianity, Islam, any of the Hindu and all of its Hindu branches, they all talk of being an instrument in the hands of the divine. In Sanskrit it's called nimitta. I am just an instrument that the divine hand is moving me. So for example, if you make a very nice palatable dish, okay, and you move it with a spoon, mix it nicely, we don't tell the spoon, thank you, you did such great mixing. Without you, otherwise, how is this dish going to taste well? You go and thank the cook who moved the spoon, but you never thank the spoon per se. So we are the instruments. That's the whole idea. That is humility, to know that, or to come to the realization that I am only the spoon. Generally we think I am the hand, right? I am the hand, and in case you want to call God is the spoon, because I prayed, He moved things. So He is the spoon, I am the hand, which is actually quite the opposite. Krishna is the hand, we're just the spoon. I mean, if you're arrogant, we're the spoon. We're probably the matchstick or the little toothpick, but that's a different story. We're hardly unfit instruments. But the greatness of the hand is, even with unfit instruments, they can do stuff. For example, when you're fighting a war, it's not like the doctors have the most sterile instruments with them. They may not have it, but they're so good that they can cut open a wound, they can clean, they can stitch and put the soldier back into at least good health, or they can stop their death even without having good instruments. So the instrument should not become arrogant, that look at me, I'm such a great spoon, right? So that is humility. Alright, hey, I said that is humility. It says what is humility? This is more like Jeopardy. You speak about it, what is humility? Alright, so is it the absence of self-esteem? Because we talked, sometimes humility seems like worthless, bad, dumb, lazy, or timid. That was one of the words. Is it that? No. It can be. It can look like that, but the humility we're talking is not that.
Question.
Yes.
Where do you draw the line
Of?
between this and either being on this side or being on the arrogant side? So there has to be a middle path. Right?
So let's take an arrogant person's humility, how it looks like. All right. So take me as the prime example of an arrogant person. So I did some PhD thesis, or I did something, right? And I'm called on stage and everyone claps. Oh, rah, I get a standing ovation, and I stand up and say, no, please. Please don't clap. I'm really nobody. So next day I'm called for an again event, and because the previous day I said, please don't do it, nobody gets up, nobody claps. I walk on stage, they don't even acknowledge. How do I feel? What is all this? What is all this? You don't know how to respect? I've done something. That is where things change. I'm just giving an example, give you one more. We give a donation, we do some charitable work, right? And then we say, no, please don't say anything, but I like to see my name in big up there. But if my name is not there, then I'm uncomfortable. Hari, you have no respect for me. So there is a line that separates true humility from what we call shadow or false humility. True humility makes you stronger and more convinced and takes you closer to Krishna or the divine, and false humility takes you away from him. So what looks like the front, the facade of humility, like I said, it's all in the testing, how one gets tested. One of our teachers would ask the question, if you take an orange and you squeeze the orange, what will you get? It's an obvious answer. Orange juice, right? Why not apple juice? Why don't you get apple juice when you squeeze an orange?
Because it's an orange.
That's because there is no apple juice in it, right? So then he would say, well, when life will squeeze you, what will come out? Depends on what's inside. Okay, so the question to ask is, or examine is, what's inside? Because when will life squeeze us? Yesterday, day before yesterday, in a few hours, tomorrow, day after, next week, it will keep squeezing us. Anyone not squeezed in life here yet? Everyone. There is no exception. The question is, what will come out of us? Right? You agree? So this is the time to take stock, to look, and honest looking. We don't have to tell others, just an honest examination of what's inside and what we want the inside to look like. That's one of the values, right? We want genuine humility. When life squeezes us, we say, we are acting, not just showing, but genuinely feeling and acting humble or whatever it is, tolerant and compassionate. Is that okay? Does that answer? Sure. So sometimes humility may be thought about as being quiet and tolerant, right? I push you and you're tolerant, and I push you again, I keep pushing, and you're tolerant. Is that humility? Could be, but could not be also, right? Because could not be in the sense, I may be afraid of, engaging with someone who's constantly pushing me, or I may not, whatever is the, so it's not necessarily that everybody who's tolerant is necessarily humble. It's not like that. Sometimes humility is thought about as blind following without being thoughtful. You know any blind followers?
Most of the students
classes.
Most of the students and classes.
People voting for
Oh, political answer.
it is.
That's true.
You have to gauge.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But the question is, for someone to gauge and measure, most people operate on information, no knowledge or wisdom, right? They are mostly operating with whatever is the short-term benefit that one might get. That's all that people look at. They can't think long-term. Information is only for short-term. Knowledge, medium-term. Wisdom helps you think long-term, right? So when we are immature, we only think short-term results. When we are wise, we think long-term, because we're playing the game of life, which is a long haul. It's not a short run. Okay? And this is a sidebar, nothing to do with this. In any of our lives, when you are facing a critical point of decision making, right? My urge to you is, don't think short term, think long term. Okay? Because some short term choices can haunt you into the long term. And one of the things about making long term choices, if you consider in the long run what will help me, it will force you to take the high road. I'll tell you a nice story. Is that okay? I'll digress a little bit. A few years ago, a very close friend of mine, she had come into this country many years ago, illegally, if you will. She had walked through the border because her home environment was very, very difficult. And she had walked for many days and crossed the border into America. And she was 15 years old. Life moved on. Many years later, she found somebody really nice. They got married, blah, blah, blah. There came a point where she was called for a green card interview. Next day was the interview. Okay, next day at noon. The previous evening at 6 o'clock, she calls me and she tells me, I am completely in anxiety. I need your help. I said, well, what is it? What is it you want to talk about? She said, tomorrow in the interview, they're only going to ask me one question. And the one question will be, have you entered this country illegally? And if I say yes, they will say, sorry, no green card. If I say no, on their screen it would pop up that I'm lying. Then I have no chance of repairing that either. So it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. What should I do? Now, the answer in one sense could be say no and see what happens, right? But the advice was, hold on. Whatever happens, you want to know that you've always stood on the side of truth, because that will always help you more than anything else. Think long term. Although it is difficult in the short term, think long term. Oh, that's very tough, very tough. I said, doesn't matter. But being truthful is more important, because you may never see that officer again, but you will have to live with yourself for the rest of your life. Because others may not necessarily know if you're truthful or not, but when you look at yourself in the mirror, you have to live with that. So anyway, the interview came. They asked her, did you enter the country illegally? And the urge was to say no. She said, yes, I did. The officer looked at her and said, I would normally not do this, but since you're speaking the truth, approved. And it was a big revelation for them that if you take the side, the higher road, then there is a divine force that moves with you that otherwise would not be there. It's very important. So it's not just blind following, but following with proper wisdom, a sense of integrity, and knowing that someone up there is might be. All right, someone can read that loud, please.
Humility in the Gita is a virtue which is seen in behavior, but which rests on the understanding and character.
Because how can humility observe unless one acts, right? If someone is keeping silent or not doing anything, it's difficult to assess. So it's saying that it shows in behavior, but it is not an external characteristic. It has to be grounded or resting on proper understanding and character. It has to be an inner value that I can speak 40 languages of the world, and I can speak with perfect intonation, accent, grammar, slang, everything. So I challenge you and anyone in your court to find out what's my native tongue. We say in India, mother tongue. Can anyone find out? So different people ask questions, this thing, that thing, in this language, that language. He had the whole, the slang, down to the slang, he had it perfect. The only person who didn't ask any question was Birbal. And so Akbar was like, come on, nobody in my court can assess that this is not okay. So he looked at Birbal and he said, tomorrow. We will tell you the answer tomorrow, not today. I said, okay. Actually, he was a guest of the king, the emperor, so he was given a very nice place to rest and all that. And next day, when they met in court, Birbal said, oh, he's from Andhra Pradesh. Or whatever. I like to pick on Telugu people, myself once. I said, how did you know? Man, how did you know? So they were like curious. So Birbal said, well, this is what I had asked the servants to do. That at 2 a.m., when this guy is in deep sleep after eating the king's royal feast and snoring away like anything, I asked them to give him the ice bucket challenge. Pour cold ice water on him. And I asked them to carefully note in what language he swears. That will be his native tongue. Which means it's not something we think about, it's there. That's what it's talking about. Okay. And most importantly, humility rests upon a sense of identity of oneself. For example, I look around the room, yes, except maybe Arvind. Most of us think of ourselves as Indian. Arvind, you're from Malaysia, no?
No,
No.
I'm from Muscat.
Muscat?
Yeah.
Okay, not this side, but this side. Okay. So most of us think of ourselves as Indian, I guess, right? Somewhere. The moment you crack a joke or insult Indian, something will awaken in us a sense of defense or anger or something, right? And the same you say if you're not an Indian, it doesn't affect you. True? That means whatever is the emotion that is evoked is on the basis of identity. Now, among Indian friends, we joke about each other, but the moment you say something about North or South Indian, then the whole different. Because even with among Indians, I have a different identity per se, right? And if I'm among South Indians, then I have a Tamil, Andhra divide and all that. And even Andhra, I have all these little that side of the river, this side of the river, this kind of thing. It's about my identity. And based on my identity, I react or respond. But my humility is only at that level. And the identity of where we are born, what family we are from, what religion we belong to is very, very shallow and superficial. That is why people's humility is also shallow and superficial. So the real humility only begins when one has the identity of I am Atma. That's the beginning. Unless that understanding is there, our humility is still shallow. Okay? And that understanding is not in our conscious mind, but in our subconscious being. So unless we practice living like Atma, we cannot exhibit humility as an Atma. We can say it. It sounds fashionable to say, but very difficult to live it. You with me? Okay. It's not impossible, it's just difficult. It needs practice. Like anything else, needs practice. I'm going to skip this because we speaking about Sambandha Tattva and all that is. So most important is to know who am I. If you can answer that one correctly, then we're way ahead on the spiritual path. Generally, when we say who am I, we fill up with. We did an exercise a few weeks ago. Remember? Who am I? We will say I am man, I am woman, I'm Indian, I'm a student, I'm a physicist, I'm an industrial engineer, I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm poor, I'm optimistic, I'm frustrated, I'm disgusted, I am whatever. Huh? Hey, that would be great. That would be great. Uh, but then I am an instrument is also not complete. I'm an instrument in whose hands is important. Exactly. Huh? So that's important. So who am I? That needs to be properly understood from a Bhagavad Gita perspective. But here's a little story in humility. Um, our founder, Acharya, his name is Srila Prabhupada, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. He was once asked that Prabhupada, I'm having difficulty feeling humble. I'm not able to feel humble. So then this is the story. He said, our universe, according to our Vedic understanding, is out of the solar system. Our universe is at least 4 billion miles in diameter. There are unlimited number of astral bodies, stars, planets, unlimited. In all of this, our Earth is just one little tiny planet, right? So have you said perspective. So what's the perspective of the Earth in the entire universe? Tiny speck. Now on that Earth, there are many, many, many countries, right? Of which is that the US is one country. And in the US, there are many, 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 many states, 50 states, 48 years into that. And there are many such states. In that many states, there are many, many people. One place among that is Michigan. And in Michigan, there are so many cities, so many streets. And although the example was about Los Angeles, although it shows Detroit, I'll tell you the example, because he said it again later. He said there are so many streets, and one little town in the city is called Los Angeles. And in Los Angeles, there are so many streets. Okay? There are so many streets. On one street is where we are all living. And on that street also, there are so many people. And there is one person among them who's having difficulty feeling humble. What does it mean? Who the hell are we in the grand scheme of things? Nothing. Nothing. But how does our ego make us feel? Man, the whole world revolves around me. I'm so significant, I'm so important in this world. I mean, one exercise in humility, if any one of us dies today, what difference will it make to the world? Even if a great person in this world dies, what difference does it make to the world? Nothing. 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 So we're not here to think and move the planets here and there. We're here to make a difference in our lives and make it valuable for ourselves and move on. Okay. So the danger of pride or the greatness of humility is important. So the first thing is sense of acceptance of who we are. Here's a nice one on acceptance. Um, so humility is both accepting who we are and the acceptance of higher teachings. Nowhere. How many of you have seen the movie The Karate Kid? Old one and the new one, or either one of them. Old one was better, I was told.
Yes.
Regardless, what's the storyline of the Karate Kid? There's this kid who's very, very gifted, okay, exceptionally gifted, and finds a teacher. And the first meeting, the teacher doesn't care. Why? Because he notices something in the story. Great talent, but also great arrogance, ego. And that will not allow anyone to learn. One of the qualities of humility is I don't know and I want to know. But if I already know, then there's nothing to learn. And grace always flows from a higher level to a lower level. If it's on the same level, it's like water, it won't flow. Right? So this humility is not just accepting ourselves, but also accepting higher teaching. If higher teaching is coming our way, we think I already know, then it doesn't descend as they call it. Alright, so this is a nice one. I want you to read one after the other, someone for me. Someone, loud and nice.
When we don't accept an undesired event, it becomes anger. When we accept it, it becomes tolerance.
True?
Yeah.
It's the accepting of a undesired event. Now, acceptance does not mean inaction, does not mean lie down and take it. That's not what it means. Acceptance is okay, this is how the world operates, this is how it's going to be. Next one, someone else?
When we don't accept uncertainty, it becomes fear. When we accept it, it becomes adventure.
Agree? Is there anything uncertain in this world? Anyone dealing with uncertainty? Raise your hand if you're dealing with uncertainty. Others, everything is certain? What is the only one thing that is certain? Actually, two things they said. What is one of the things that is certain for sure?
Life and
Success. Alright, next one.
When we don't accept others' bad behavior towards us, it becomes hatred. When we accept it, it becomes forgiveness.
Very good. Next one.
When we don't accept others' success, it becomes jealousy. When we accept it, it becomes inspiration.
True? Acceptance is the key to handling life well. Why is it a key? Because it unlocks greater opportunities if used properly. So I leave it here for some time to look through. Okay. In the Bhagavad Gita, acceptance is demonstrated by service in the mood of surrender. A lot of people have difficulty with this word. So I read it like this for Indian audience. In the Bhagavad Gita, acceptance is demonstrated by service in the mode of surrender. A little easier and palatable. So the question is, who surrenders? So the important words is service and surrender. Now the word surrender has a connotation of giving up, holding a white flag, truce, right? That's the general connotation of the word surrender. I give up. In our Vedic teachings, the word surrender that's used does not mean I give up. It means I take on. Okay? What I give up is the pursuit of taking the low road. Because whenever you take the low road, it's very easy. Right? When you have to speak a lie or speak the truth, speaking lie is very easy. Speaking the truth is difficult. Right? When in a point of weakness, giving in to the weakness is easy. To hold on, right, to the side of strength is difficult. So surrender means I give up, I'm done, I'm tired of taking the low road, but I'm taking the high road. That is surrender. Because I'm taking the high road on the strength of the divine. I'm taking the high road on the strength of the Bhagavad Gita, on the strength of what Krishna is speaking in the Bhagavad Gita. That is surrender. So surrender doesn't seem like a loser. Generally, the word surrender has to do something with losing. This is about winning, okay, or gaining. Fair enough? So that's what the word surrender means. But that surrender has to come from the attitude of service. Service, by definition, means someone else is going to benefit. Right? We don't, of course, in America, we used to self service. Yeah, everything is self service. Gas station is self service. Lunch is self service. Pretty much everything. Coffee is self service. Right? But generally, service means someone else is benefited. That's what service by nature means. So, attitude or demonstrated by mood of service. Who are we serving? The one who's teaching us. Right? That is why in the Vedic paradigm, teachers have a very, very high position. Right? For a very, very long time, even yes, now when you meet your teacher or someone who teaches you, then there is a certain kind of respect. You stand up when they come, we speak properly, so that's what it means. Sir. Alright. Finally, and I'm gonna end in a couple of minutes. Humility is being in our natural state. What is our natural state? Anyone? The state of serving. Very good. Acting from the spiritual platform, realizing that we are insignificant spirit souls who can make a difference when we embrace mood of service. Are we constantly serving or not? Yes, for what? Are we serving or not? We are serving. Right. Now we are serving at different levels. Someone is serving their mind and the insatiable demands of the mind. But they're serving, they're subservient to their mind. That's a very low position. They have no ability to say no to their mind. Someone who used to smoke challenged a person who was not smoking. They said, "Why are you not smoking?" He said, "I chose not to." "Why are you smoking?" "Because I like to. It's a choice I'm making." Right? And he told the other person, "You are weak, therefore you're staying away from it." And this person said, "Well, I have the choice to smoke or not to smoke, but I choose not to. Do you have the same choice? Do you have the choice to not smoke?" And the person said, "Yes." "Can you make that choice?" "No." That means you don't have the choice. So you are subservient to the demands of the mind, is what the person said. But you're serving the mind. Someone serves, I guess, their family. That's a little higher. That's a little better than selfishness. But it's still selfish. Why?
It's your family.
Huh?
It's because it's your family.
Because it is my family. Very good. Are you serving other families as well? Maybe not. A little higher than that is serving my community. But that's also, in one sense, a little selfish because it is still my community. Then my country, humanity, It's still selfish because I'm a human being, I'm helping other human beings. Then I might think of serving other living beings, but I don't have the capacity of serving all the living beings unless I see all living beings as, it uses the word here, spirit souls. Unless I see that, unless I understand, I feel and I live like that. Until then, there is some tinge of selfishness. So we are serving in different ways. The actual service, that is our real nature, is that every Atma is in service to God, in service to divinity. It is there. You cannot say no to it. However, not knowing it, that service reflects in service to country, family, this one, that one, that thing, this thing. But that service just misguided. Okay? Just as sugar is always sweet, that's the nature of sugar. Water is always liquid, that's the nature of water. You can freeze it and make it ice. As soon as you leave it, it will move towards its natural state of liquidity. Similarly, the Atma, whatever is the state, it is always serving, but that service is misdirected. Humility means that one should not be anxious to have the satisfaction of being honored by others. We talked about that. And then we'll end with a few quotes. Someone? Can read the quote, please.
If you are humble, nothing will touch you, neither praise nor disgrace, because you know what you are.
Alright, any questions, comments, thoughts, objections?
Is recognition same as not being humble?
Is recognition what do you mean?
People want recognition for their work, to be acknowledged by others. Necessarily doesn't have to be a pat on the back, but just to be acknowledged for the work you do. Does that still mean that you're not humble?
It means, does not humble? And from a Bhagavad Gita perspective, yes. But the honesty is we're not there. So it's okay. Part of humility is the honesty that is important. Where people split is they say it's not important for me at all, but when they don't get it, then they bend out of shape. That is worse. Being honest is much better.